CROSQ has embarked on 2 energy efficiency projects to drive home the importance of standards and quality for the energy sector. These initiatives include the CARICOM Regional Energy Efficiency Building Code and the Regional Harmonized Energy Efficiency Labeling Program, better known as C. CROSQ, the network of national standard bodies in CARICOM, facilitates the regional sustainable energy agenda as it relates to testing, measurement and inspection procedures to aid in strengthening the energy sector. At CROSQ, our approach to the development and harmonization of standards and quality is integral in transforming the way we use energy in the Caribbean. Our citizens can aspire to a higher standard of living by reducing their energy consumption through use of energy-efficient appliances and constructing safer, cleaner, and more productive workspaces. Through CROSQ's work, consumers will be able to purchase energy-efficient equipment, devices, and appliances with greater confidence and the assurance of quality and safety provided by following the C labels. With the threat of climate change and more active hurricane seasons, countries can mitigate against natural disasters when the CARICOM Regional Energy Efficiency Building Code governs their choices in building construction. To learn more about quality infrastructure in energy, visit energy.crosq.org. Energy Efficiency Building Code governs their choices in building construction. To learn more about quality infrastructure in energy, visit energy.
See labels, read the labels, read the labels carefully. You will see they are the key to energy efficiency. You must read the labels when you're shopping for a fridge. These labels you cannot miss on LED bulbs and CFLs. You'll find them on ACs as well.
The new CARICOM Energy Efficiency labels will help you make better decisions on electrical items you purchase. They show you how much energy is used by each product so that you can save money on electricity in your homes and businesses. Look out for the labels on refrigerators, AC units, and light bulbs. To learn more about these new labels, visit energy.crosq.org.
See labels, read the labels, read the labels carefully. You will see they are the key to energy efficiency. You must read the labels.
crosq.org.
See labels, read the labels, read the labels carefully.
The CARICOM Regional Energy Efficiency Building Code was developed to help property developers increase the energy efficiency and the upgradability of their building projects. Energy savings help offset the potential higher cost of building your home to code. And enhanced upgradability helps commercial owners increase their competitive advantage, saving money over time. Additionally, lower energy demands during and after the building process can also lead to community and national level benefits like reduced reliance on fossil fuel generated electricity across the construction industry and in homes, lower national fuel import bills, which can free up funding for other critical areas of investment, and fewer greenhouse gas emissions. So do the maths, play the long game, and help build towards a better future today. For more information on the CARICOM Regional Energy Efficiency Building Code, visit energy.crosq.org.
Nadita, we are not hearing you. Good morning, everyone. Just bear with us for a brief minute. We are trying to sort out an audio issue. Okay, good morning and apologies for the brief break. While we sort out the audio issue, I would like to introduce Ms. Janice Hilaire, who is our coordinator for resource mobilization and program development, as well as the manager of the CROSQ energy portfolio at the CARICOM Regional Organization for Standards and Quality. She has been with the organization since 2014. She holds a master's in business administration with a specialization for the Henley Business School, University of Reading, and a BSc in economics and management with the University of the West Indies, Cape Town campus. More recently, she completed a micro master's in sustainable energy with the University of Queensland. Ms. Hilaire will bring to you our opening remarks.
Thank you, Latoya. Representatives of the GIZ and the TAPSEC project, directors of the National Bureaus of Standards, representatives of regional institutions, representatives of ministries of energy, representatives of private sector organizations and businesses, technical officers and staff of the CROSQ Secretariat and the National Bureaus of Standards, media representatives, participants today, good morning. So the CARICOM Regional Organization for Standards and Quality, CROSQ, wishes every one of you here today a good morning and welcomes you to the 10th and final webinar in the QI in Energy webinar series. This webinar series has been executed as part of the CROSQ Regional Quality Infrastructure, or RQI component of the now completed GIZ Technical Assistance Program for Sustainable Energy in the Caribbean TAPSEC project. Before continuing, I'd like to offer apologies on behalf of the CROSQ CEO, Mr. Derek Omar, for his unavoidable absence. He's currently attending another meeting. The CROSQ RQI component of the TAPSEC project was started in November 2019. The project was funded by the European Union 11th EDF project and Federal Republic of Germany and was managed in CARICOM by the GIZ. The CROSQ component was one of several projects under the broader program designed and executed to assist the region in its efforts to mitigate against climate change through support of sustainable energy initiatives. Through this project, CROSQ sought to build capacity in member states to support the national implementation of the 2018 CARICOM Regional Energy Efficiency Building Code, the CREEBC, and the Regional Harmonized Energy Labeling Scheme for select electrical appliances. The project sought to address gaps not supported by existing CROSQ energy projects. Although CROSQ has done extensive sensitization and awareness of these two initiatives, please bear with me while I highlight briefly the regional advancement of the CREEBC and the labeling scheme. The 2018 CREEBC was approved in March 2018 at the 73rd Special Quoted Meeting for Energy and was developed with the assistance of the GIZ RITA program and the ESD project. The CREEBC was developed based on the International Energy Conservation Code of the International Code Council, the ICC, and are published by the ICC. While a tool for mitigation against climate change, the CREEBC are also critical in building resilience against climate change and can be utilized at the national level as part of a comprehensive suite of building codes. The Regional Harmonized Energy Efficiency Labeling Scheme was established in July 2019 with the introduction of the flagship CARICOM energy efficiency labels for refrigerators, lighting equipment, and air conditioners. The framework of the scheme was built on the regional development of the energy efficiency labeling standards with minimum performance standards and support to regional energy efficiency centers of excellence in Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica in the provision of equipment and training in energy efficiency testing. These two countries, along with non-testing countries of Belize and St. Lucia, were also supported through training in market surveillance and study tours. Since the establishments, efforts have been concentrated in operationalizing of the pilot scheme with a focus on building capacity in member states. These efforts have included the development of national procedures, equipment purchases, impact studies, and audits of the capacity of the laboratories. To assist with building this capacity in energy efficiency, the TAPSEC RQI component has been a welcome support to both energy initiatives. With the CREEBC, two reference publications, the 2018 CREEBC Code Essentials and the 2018 CREEBC Study Companion were developed to support the CREEBC. These publications were developed by the International Code Council to be utilized by artisans in the construction industry and in learning about the code requirements respectively. Industry practitioners in 9 member states were trained in the code requirements, and code officials and inspectors in these member states were given the opportunity to obtain certification through training in code compliance and requirement, critical for implementation. In addition to this, the CREEBC was translated to French to facilitate the adoption of the code in Haiti. As it relates to the labeling scheme, the existing countries were joined by Barbados in implementation. These countries were equipped with tools to facilitate implementation, such as procedures manuals, a specialized printer to facilitate production of energy efficiency labels, labels templates, and equipment, coupled with a boost in promotional efforts through awareness-raising campaigns and support. Another achievement of the project, and the reason why we are here today, is the execution of the webinar series entitled QI in Energy. This series sought to sensitize and bring awareness to the movement towards integration of quality infrastructure in the sector of energy in the region. Importantly, we educated on the work that CROSQ is currently doing in the regional energy sphere, work that is concentrated mainly on the CREEBC and the labeling scheme. Today, we are here for the final webinar, number 10 in the series. Our objective today is to advocate for national implementation of these two important initiatives which have been highlighted, and to educate on requirements for transition from regional development to national implementation. At the same time, we will showcase the regional services available to member states as part of the scheme once these member states begin to implement. I thank you for joining us, and please feel free to engage in the discussions once invited to do so. We value your ideas, input, and support. Thank you, and have a pleasant good morning.
Hi, good morning once again. I forgot to introduce myself before. I am Latoya Burnham, Technical Officer for Quality Promotions with the CROSQ Secretariat. I will now introduce you to our moderator for today, Ms. Nadita Ramachala, who is the Manager of the Standardization Division for the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards. Nadita?
Good morning, Latoya. Can you confirm that you can hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, thank you so much. Apologies for the technical glitch before. It is my pleasure to moderate today's session. So I'm so happy to be part of today's session with CROSQ. We will now hear from Mr. Churchill Norbert, a regional consultant and expert, and he will be speaking about the steps to the national implementation lessons from Antigua and Barbuda. But before I turn you over to Mr. Norbert, I will just do a brief introduction. So Mr. Norbert is an engineer whose areas of specialty are electrical engineering, energy management, renewable energy, and project management. He has worked in the energy industry for over 3 decades in the CARICOM region and internationally. He is the founder and managing director of Energy and Engineering Consulting Services based in Antigua. He holds a 3-year diploma in electrical engineering with a power specialization from the University of Technology in Jamaica, a certified energy manager designation, certified photovoltaic practitioner designation, a certified hospitality facilities executive, and a Master of Science degree in project management from the University of Salford in Manchester. He's also an active member of the Association of Energy Engineers based in the USA, as well as the chairman of the National Electrotechnical Committee in Antigua and Barbuda, and represents Antigua and Barbuda on the ISO Technical Committee 301. He was also the chair of the regional project team that developed the 2018 CARICOM Regional Energy Efficiency Building Code, as well as a lecturer at the University of the West Indies Open Campus in Antigua and Barbuda. He's married with 2 children and is an Antiguan by nationality and St. Lucian by birth. And with that very comprehensive bio for Churchill, it is my pleasure to turn the floor over to him to go into the technical details of this very important code for the region. So Norbert, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And I want to extend a special good morning to all the participants. Just observing all the protocols. So as we move forward with the implementation phase of the CARICOM Regional Energy Efficiency Building Code, my presentation today will be focusing on the lessons learned from Antigua and Barbuda. But before I do so, I would like just to give the global context as far as the importance and significance of what we are doing here as it relates to codes and policies and standards that relate specifically to the buildings and construction sector. So according to the EIA, buildings are considered to be a source of enormous untapped efficiency potential. The buildings and buildings construction sectors combined are responsible for almost 1/3 of the total global final energy consumption and nearly 15% of direct CO2 emissions. Energy demand from buildings and buildings construction continues to rise. And this is driven by improved access to energy in developing countries like ours in the region, growing demand for air conditioning in tropical countries. And I've highlighted this in red because it is very much appropriate and very much the situation as it is for us in the Caribbean region. We have seen an increase in the demand for air conditioning because of the excessive heat that we currently experience. Greater ownership and use of energy consuming appliances, and rapid growth in global buildings floor area. I've also highlighted this because in Antigua and Barbuda, we have seen a boom in the construction industry, both for the residential and commercial buildings. And so, according to the EIA, there are enormous untapped efficiency potential in our buildings and within the construction sector. This bar graph demonstrates the global CO2 emissions in gigaton of CO2 from the building sector. And it also shows what the projections will look like in terms of applying the relevant policies and standards to our buildings. And we can see here from 2010 all the way up to 2019, there was a steady increase in the CO2 emissions from the building sector. So the direct and indirect emissions from building operations plummeted at about 9 gigatons in 2020. So you can see here that there is a slight decrease in the CO2 emissions in 2020. And that's after the average of 1% increase per year since 2010. Although minimum performance standards are tightening, heat pump and renewable equipment deployment is accelerating, and the power sector is continuing to decarbonize. The 2020 drop in the building sector CO2 emissions resulted primarily from lower activity in the services sector. So we would recall that the lockdowns and the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic really was the reason why we saw this drop in the global CO2 emissions. From the regional context, I'm now referencing work that was done by the Ecanola company, and they presented a report in 2019 that looked at the priority sectors and the energy efficiency targets for the member states of CARICOM. This looked at the appliances primarily, and for Antigua and Barbuda, the report showed that in the residential sector, there is a potential for a 30% improvement as far as energy efficiency is concerned, primarily looking at the appliances in buildings. For the industry, 45%. The public sector, 53%. Commercial and tourism, 43%. So for Antigua and Barbuda, we see here that the untapped potential that we spoke about in buildings, specifically looking at the appliances in buildings like lighting, refrigerators, cooling fans, that the targets for these areas are quite significant. And that is from a national perspective, where you can look at the islands and see what the potential is for the other member states of CARICOM as far as energy efficiency targets are concerned. And I was the national consultant that worked with the Ecanola team to develop to collect the data for Antigua and Barbuda and as well for Montserrat. There were other experts throughout the region representing all the member states. And so this gives a snapshot of what the targets look like for each member state of CARICOM, and specifically, as I said, for Antigua and Barbuda. So we've seen the global context. We have had a look at the regional and national context as far as energy efficiency is concerned. And I'm sure that we all will agree that this untapped potential, we need to take the necessary action steps towards harnessing the benefits and the untapped potential that we see within the building sector regionally. The CREE as well would have shared this information throughout the region based on the work that they have done. And this is the snapshot, the 2020 SNAP Energy Report Card, for Antigua and Barbuda. So for Antigua and Barbuda, we have the installed capacity in megawatt hours and the heavy fuel oils at 50%, electrical utility heavy fuel oils 27% in terms of the capacity. So quite a bit of the energy generated in Antigua and Barbuda is done via the use of fossil fuels. Now, as far as the electricity consumption in gigawatt hours, we also see that the commercial sector, 180 gigawatt hours for the commercial sector, and for the residential sector, 103 gigawatt hours as far as the energy consumption, between the two sectors, the commercial and the residential sector. So commercial and residential dominate the consumption of energy in Antigua and Barbuda, and primarily most of this energy is generated by fossil-based fuels. The renewable energy capacity in megawatt hours, the potential for solar photovoltaic systems, 199 megawatt hours, and for wind, 400 megawatt hours. So again, we can see where renewable energy, the potential to utilize renewable energy within Antigua and Barbuda, both for photovoltaics and wind energy, is very, very high, which would by far exceed the installed capacity and, of course, to meet the demands, the energy demands of Antigua and Barbuda. So this report from CREEBC, and it was also issued for all the member states of CARICOM. So you could all get this information from CREEBC to see where you are as far as your energy report card. But this is specific to Antigua and Barbuda. Antigua and Barbuda also updated the nationally determined contributions for the period 2020 to 2030. And this information was communicated to the UNFCCC on the 2nd of September 2021. So as we'll drill down into the specific action steps that we have taken in Antigua and Barbuda, I'm sharing with you this, what we refer to as the NDCs, so that you can see the specific and deliberate and bold targets and steps that we have taken in terms of transitioning into the net zero by 2050 and to utilize policies and standards that will help us to decarbonize our building sector. So this is just the table 1, which is in the updated NDCs for Antigua and Barbuda. And we can see here that under the energy sector, to enhance the established enabling legal, policy, and institutional environment for a low carbon emission development to achieve poverty reduction and sustainable development. We also see B under the energy sector that looks at establish efficiency standards for the importation of all appliances, and as well to look at the dedicated technical and other support aimed to de-risking investment in greenhouse gas reductions by SMEs in Antigua and Barbuda. And D, a legal and technical framework is established as an enabling environment to support the rising of necessary resources for the low greenhouse gas emissions, the climate resilient transition from international support providers, private sector, so that we could now make this transition possible. So the number 6 here on the adaptation looks at the building code updated and passed into law in line with climate resilient development pathway, including inter alia a requirement that all new buildings or all new homes built after 2025 have backup renewable energy generated and storage systems. So this was the updated NDCs from Antigua and Barbuda. And so this has to be supported by relevant action steps, relevant activities. And we have in Antigua and Barbuda the updated, and we have also adopted the CREEBC, which is now the National Energy Efficiency Building Code for Antigua and Barbuda. And that brings me to the actual action steps that we have taken. So the CARICOM Regional Energy Efficiency Building Code has been adopted in Antigua as a national standard, and this was done by the Antigua and Barbuda Bureau of Standards. And so we now have this document as a national standard registered in the Gazette for Antigua and Barbuda. Throughout the development of this Energy Efficiency Building Code, we had dialogue with key stakeholders. So for example, the Development Control Authority, they were part of the process as far as developing the standards. They had the opportunity to share and to comment on the document and as well agree on the way forward. So during the development of this building code, Energy Efficiency Building Code, the Development Control Authority in Antigua and Barbuda, we established the way forward in that the Antigua and Barbuda Bureau of Standards would be responsible for updating and for the updating of this energy efficiency building code, and the implementation will be done by the Development Control Authority. And that makes sense because they are also responsible for the implementation of the updated building code. The building code in Antigua and Barbuda is being updated as well, and the building code references the energy efficiency building code. So although we have adopted it as a national standard, the Development Control Authority, in the review of the National Building Code for Antigua and Barbuda, they have also referenced the energy efficiency building code in the building code. And they have agreed to be the ones to drive the implementation and the enforcement of the energy efficiency building code. So as you heard before, this document, the energy efficiency building code, the supporting documents that we have as reference documents is the 2018 CARICOM Energy Efficiency Study Companion, and as well the CARICOM Energy Code Essentials. All three documents are available on the International Code Council's website, and that's the logo below the screen here. So member states have all been trained, and so the access to the document can be done through the ICC website. And of course, if you need any assistance, you can refer to your National Bureau of Standards, and they would be able to assist you with that as far as accessing the documents. And all the training that we have done throughout the region, as you heard from Janice, throughout the CARICOM region, CROSQ was responsible for the 9 member states, but the ESD project also provided training for the remaining 4 members within the CARICOM region. Just to recap, the Energy Code, the intent of the Energy Code, and most of you may have received this information because you may have participated in previous training sessions as far as the requirements of the Energy Efficiency Building Code. And so the first intent is to conserve energy over the useful life of each building. The second intent is to provide flexibility for innovation. And the third, not to abridge safety or health requirements from other laws and regulations. And before I end, I just want to use this slide to give you an idea of the roadmap that we are actually following in Antigua and Barbuda as far as the implementation of the National Energy Efficiency Building Code. So the technical experts, they are members of the National Technical Committee. They were involved in the development of the standard. So all along the way, we have been speaking to each other. We have been having dialogue as far as the way forward. We have commented on this document. So we have full ownership of this document in Antigua and Barbuda. The policy development and enforcement is being done, as I said, by the Development Control Authority. And so where we are now is that they have referenced, we have adopted the code, and they have referenced it in the National Building Code. So they will be responsible for enforcement and for the whole question of the inspections and the verifications to ensure that the buildings are following the energy efficiency requirements that are there. So enforcement would be for the Development Control Authority, and of course the energy efficient construction, which will be based on following the requirements of the code and to create this energy awareness at the end of the day. So working with the technical experts in Antigua and Barbuda, enforcement being done by the Development Control Authority, and the training, in terms of training the trainers, CROSQ has done a tremendous job throughout the region, training trainers throughout the member states, all the member states of CARICOM, so that we can continue to do this and to continue to be upgraded as far as the requirements and the familiarity, the compliance paths, and all of this stuff, so that at the end of the day, we can build a team of builders who are very much aware of what the requirements are for the Energy Efficiency Building Code. Of course, this must happen together with the public awareness and the social mobilization experts, information workers, and to keep driving this awareness as far as knowing that the Energy Efficiency Building Code exists and what are the requirements for utilization. So as far as Antigua and Barbuda is concerned, we are very much on the way to begin the actual implementation of or to use the Energy Efficiency Building Code based on the framework that we have in place, the consensus that we have arrived upon at this time, and the fact that we have adopted the CREEBC as our National Energy Efficiency Building Code. So thank you very much, and I will hand over the mic back to our narrator.
Thank you, Mr. Norbert, for giving us that comprehensive overview of the roadmap being used in Antigua and Barbuda. It is very important to note that the enforcement is being done through the National Competent Authority for Development Control in Antigua and Barbuda. I would just like to note as well as Trinidad and Tobago and as TTBS, we have also initiated the adoption of the code as a voluntary standard. However, we have some limitations in terms of having a comprehensive national building code, and that is something that we need to address at the national level. Our code was available for comment until the 14th of April. So we encourage stakeholders as part of the consensus building process that you mentioned, Churchill, that it is very important to get feedback from the experts like yourself and engineers, building practitioners to provide their input into the national adoption process. And I think that is what raises the awareness and stimulates that driver for energy efficiency in buildings. So if you have any last thoughts, you can go ahead. We have the question and answer segment that is a little later down in the agenda for today. So we will take questions. Persons can start putting their questions in the chats and we will respond to all after we've heard from all the presenters. So thank you, Norbert. If you wanted to close with anything, you can go ahead now before we go to the next speaker.
Oh, thank you, Nadita. One closing thought is that we really want to narrow the gap between the rhetoric and actions. We have done quite a bit of work. We've been speaking to each other for a very long time. In Antigua and Barbuda, we started this process with updated the building code in 2016. And thank God we are pretty much at the final stages where the building code will be updated. And so the action steps are necessary at this time. We are running out of time, and based on what we've seen from even the global trajectory, buildings remain off track to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. To meet this target, all new buildings and 20% of existing building stock would need to be zero carbon ready as soon as 2030. So I encourage all of you who are on this webinar today to really look at the action steps and utilizing the code, because it is necessary that we move in terms of implementation. We have done the training. We have ICC providing quite a bit of support through CROSQ. And so now is the time for us to use the code and capitalize on the opportunities. If you have a project that you're currently undertaking, that you can utilize the code, even if it's at a voluntary level, utilize it so that you can begin to see some lessons learned and what are some of the ways you can improve before you get into full enforcement of the code.
Thank you, Churchill. I think it is very heartening to know that we have best practice within our own region. And I certainly think Antigua and Barbuda has done a lot of work in terms of advancing building codes and now including the reference to the energy efficiency building code. So I think that is a very positive development for our region, because normally when we think about best practice, we think about countries outside of our region. So it is very heartening to know that we have a best case example that we can rely on as we seek to do our adoptions within our region. So thank you, Churchill, and I will now introduce you to the next speaker. So we have Mr. Doodnath Singh. He's a standards officer at the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards, doing a presentation on TTBS and the regional energy efficiency testing for lighting. So he's a standards officer where he manages the energy efficiency lighting laboratory at TTBS. and he supports the organization's conformity assessments activities nationally. He has over 14 years of experience in laboratory activities, and this has resulted in some significant achievements at the TTBS. And one of the main achievements is the development of testing capabilities and laboratory facilities for lighting products and electrical cables. He's an electrical engineer by profession, a skilled project manager, and a highly competent quality practitioner focused on the advancement of the quality infrastructure nationally and regionally. His areas of expertise include testing, quality assurance, energy management, and energy efficiency. So I'm pleased to turn the session over to Doodnath to highlight the testing facilities that we need for the energy labeling standards that have been developed at the regional level. So Doodnath, the floor is yours.
Hi, good morning all. Thank you very much, Narita. Good morning to all participants. All protocols observed. My name is Doodnath Singh. I'm the officer in charge of the Energy Efficiency Laboratory at the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards. Just a brief overview of the laboratory. So the Energy Efficiency Lighting Laboratory came into existence as part of the CARICOM project, R3E, strengthening of regional quality infrastructure in the Caribbean in the areas of energy efficiency and renewable energies as a center of excellence for lighting products. A bit overview of the lighting laboratory at the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards. The Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards in March of 2020 acquired an integrated sphere system as part of its developmental process for this new area of testing in the energy efficiency arena of CFLs and LED lighting products. In August of 2020, the laboratory was commissioned and audited by an international laboratory of Energy Star, Intertech, which the audit was successful. The testing of the lighting products as it relates to 4 major areas, which were built on competent staff, fully automated and high precision equipment, stringent quality environmental conditions, quality checks and balances. These areas, the laboratory will provide a high quality of recognized testing both nationally and regionally. Based on staff competence, personnel from the Electrical Products Laboratory attended a 1-week training session at Labelo in Brazil in August of 2018, organized by PTB and CROSQ. Research and development were conducted over time, and with additional training obtained from Intertech in 2020, the lab's personnel was equipped to meet high performance output in this testing area. Based on the infrastructure requirements to facilitate the testing of CFLs and LEDs, in August of 2019, TTBS commenced infrastructural works with the assistance from the Ministry of Planning and Development in Trinidad and Tobago to construct an envelope and install the necessary environmental controls to accommodate the integrating sphere system and provisions for proper control against fluctuations in environmental conditions. A dehumidifier was also obtained to improve the lab's accuracy by controlling the facility's humidity during testing in accordance with the product standards. Implementation of the minimum energy performance standards. The lighting laboratory have implemented 2 performance standards for testing of CFLs and LEDs as it relates to the IEC 60969 and IEC 62612 respectively. These standards will cover performance testing mainly for electrical and luminous characteristics of the lighting products. Based on the testing requirements of these standards, this table will show you, give you an overview of the test requirements as per the standards for CFLs and LEDs. We test electrical parameters with regards to voltage, current, power, frequency, power factor, and efficacy. With regards to the photometric parameters, we will also be testing the color temperature, chromaticity coordinates, color rendering index, and initial luminous flux. By the end of 2022, we'll also implement testing for the lamp startup time, which will be for CFLs and LEDs. And these tests will be regarded to run-up time, start time, and flicker tests. With regard to the sampling size for testing, the sampling size required by the IEC 62612 for testing of LED self-ballasted lamps are 20 lamps, which consists of the same batch for testing. As it relates to the CFL lamps, we require 10 lamps of the same size as well. Each batch shall be of the same type, model, brand, wattage, voltage, and frequency for submission to the testing laboratory. With regards to the duration of testing, the duration for testing of LED lamps extends to 4 days, and this is 4 working days. And the duration for testing of CFL lamps extends to 7 working days. Reporting takes 2 working days for issue. This is exclusive of the testing time. With regards to costing, TTBS has developed a cost structure for testing as per batch size for both CFLs and LEDs based on electric and photometric parameters. The following is the testing cost as per light product. For 1 batch of LED lamps, the cost is US $450, and this is for the electrical and photometric testing. As it relates to the CFL testing, for a batch size of 10 lamps, it's also $450. And this is in relation to the aging of the CFL lamps and the electrical and photometric testing. Only CFL lamps requires aging, which requires the lamp to be energized for 4.5 days before the commencement of testing. With regards to requests for testing and shipping, so this is extended to the national community as well as the regional community. The following process are to be followed when lighting products are being arranged to be sent to TTBS for testing. The NSBs will first contact the regional testing facility, which is TTBS, via email with details for the intent to submit samples for testing. TTBS will respond via email to the NSBs with a request for quotation form. This is to be filled by the NSBs with the relevant information and returned via email to TTBS contact personnel for processing. Subsequent to the receipt of the request for quotation, TTBS will provide via email the lab services order contract, which will include the items information and costs for testing. Once the NSB agrees, they shall confirm this by returning the service order contract to TTBS via email with the information provided with approval, that is, a signature by an authorized personnel and company stamp. The form shall also detail the payment information. All payments shall be made via USD, and the wire transfer information TTBS will provide the US account to the NSBs or any local client that requests testing. Upon receipt of the service order contract and payment, TTBS will schedule the item for testing. The lab requires that these items be received 5 working days before the scheduled date for testing. The NSBs shall make arrangements with their customs broker or customs authority for the shipping of items to be tested at TTBS. All shipping arrangements is held solely with the individual NSB to the point of collection at the Energy Efficiency Testing Laboratory at TTBS. When items are received at TTBS, the Energy Efficiency Lighting Laboratory personnel or his designate shall inspect all incoming items for quantity, that all items are respective batch size, damage and defective before it is accepted for testing. If any anomalies are found via the aforementioned inspection, this will be lodged through the TTBS quality management system, and the associated NSB will be communicated as soon as possible by means of telephone or email. All items submitted for testing shall be in their respective packaging, as the information on both packaging and item is critical for analysis and evaluation of results. If during testing issues arise with items or test equipment, the laboratory shall notify the associated NSB of the situation, and a decision will be made or taken for an amendment to the service order contract. Reporting of results will be issued 2 working days after the completion of testing. After testing, disposal shall be conducted by TTBS. These samples shall be disposed in a manner that meets all chemical, and other safety requirements. With regards to our services, the Energy Efficiency Lighting Laboratory has commenced testing at a national level through our conformity assessment activities. Also, TTBS will also be extending its services by providing regional testing for member states when they begin to implement their labeling scheme in country. And with this, I bring you to the end of my presentation, and thank you.
Thank you, Doodnath, for that presentation. Any last thoughts before we go to the next presenter? You've highlighted, the testing services of the TTBS with respect to CFLs and LEDs. Any key points for today's participants?
Well, with regards to our participants, our testing, we have commenced national testing at this level, and we have testing currently being conducted at the Energy Efficiency Lighting Laboratory. With regards to testing, we are in the stages of still developing the process with regards to these two IC standards, both for CFLs and LEDs. And we have been working to develop the safety requirements as it pertains to these standards. And we should, in 2023, have the capabilities to accommodate the safety aspects for these products. So in the process of developing the performance standards, we are also in the process of developing the safety standard requirements for these products for safety requirements as it pertains to the wider public, and both at the national level and regional level.
Okay, thank you, Doodnath. So I would now turn the floor over to our next presenter. So we will hear from Mr. Nigel Davids, head of the Energy Efficiency Testing Laboratory. He will speak about the Bureau of Standards Jamaica and the regional energy efficiency testing for cooling equipment. And I will just quickly go through the bio for Mr. Davids. He's a senior technical officer at the Bureau of Standards Jamaica. He works in the Energy Efficiency Testing Laboratory, a testing laboratory that strives for excellence in the testing services it offers, testing of household refrigerators and room air conditioners. He has made unstinted contributions to the development of the Energy Efficiency Testing Laboratory since he started working in that unit in 2017. He has helped the laboratory to pass 2 proficiency testing exercises, one for energy efficiency testing of refrigerators and the other for energy efficiency testing of air conditioners, a successful gap audit, and he also helps the laboratory through its first JANAC accreditation audit, and he would have graduated from the University of Technology with a Bachelor of Engineering degree in Electrical Engineering. I just wanted to highlight the importance of the proficiency testing exercises. This means that these tests would be internationally recognized, and we can demonstrate that we are achieving accurate results that are comparable to international results. So on that note, I'd like to turn you over to Mr. David. The floor is yours.
You're going to use this.
Nigel? Just one moment while we sort out a technical glitch. Are you able to share your presentation? So as we wait for Mr. Davids to start his presentation, participants, you can write your questions in the chat or during the question and answer segment. We can unmute your mic, so you'd need to raise your hands. So any questions from the previous presenters, please start thinking about those and we will respond during the Q&A section. So Mr. Davids, are you ready?
Good morning, good morning. Yes, I'm ready.
Good morning. So the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. And a pleasant good morning or good afternoon to you all, wherever you are in the region and across the world. So I welcome you this morning to our forum. We want to present to you what effort we're putting also for here in Jamaica regarding the testing of refrigerators, air conditioners, and in an extension, wine chillers, and all those things that we try to do in terms of energy efficiency testing for the region. We, at the regional level of energy efficiency testing, we're trying to offer a service of excellence regarding these particular testing for the region. That's our effort that we have put out, and we have invested a lot in the laboratory through the World Bank, and we have set up the laboratory here in Jamaica for energy efficiency testing of refrigerators and also for air conditioners, because we realize that the demand for these types of items to be tested, we have to put out an effort to ensure that excellent results, accurate results are being presented out there for us as a region, in an extension to reduce the energy bill for the region at large. The goal of the Energy Efficiency Testing Laboratory is to become a laboratory of excellence in its testing services offered, particularly for the testing of household refrigerators and room air conditioners. We said household refrigerators and room air conditioners just to emphasize our capacity or our scope as to the level of these things that we covered, because we have to look at the system in a sense of non-ducted units. So especially for air conditioners and for refrigerators, we do have a scope that we looked at regarding these particular items that the lab can test at the moment. The launch of the Energy Efficiency Test Program was in October 14, 2017. We have a launch, and the commissioning of testing facilities were done in July 2018. That's just for a brief history of the laboratory. We also comes up with, for the brief history, we have done awareness sessions in November 2018, informed importers of test standards, case study of new energy label, introduced import registration program, and we also have importers started signing up under the NCRA registration program in December 2018 for this labeling scheme / registration program. Continuing the history, the lab started conducting energy efficiency tests in January 2019, and then we proceed with JS179, which does not fully address the testing of inverter for air conditioner units. We have researched and to capture the testing of inverter units. So information was required from manufacturers, right, for them to be able to show us information how to vary the speed of these particular units so we can get the accurate results that we are looking for. Resources needed to test refrigerators and additional thermocouples and mass loads for freezers over 14.2 liters for the previous standard use. And in doing so, a 6 test station regional chamber was started earlier for refrigerators and wine chillers. And we have, in addition, a 10 test station refrigerator chamber for refrigerators and wine chillers, and an air conditioner test chamber for room air conditioners. Both refrigerator test chambers have a full load operating potential, and that testing capabilities for the full load operating potential is for 16 refrigerators simultaneously. And we also looked at the possibility of a full load operation of the air conditioner test chamber is 1 AC unit per test. And these AC units that we test, we have to look at the window units and split units at the moment. But for the future, we would have to think to extend our services where we can test other types of units as we go along. We try to develop a building competence and capacity, where the training of staff at ANSI Mexico in April 2018 was arranged by CROSQ and PTB. 2 engineers received 2 weeks training in testing of refrigerator and 1 week training in testing of ACs. And this was successful. A successful gap audit was also achieved. Energy efficiency lab done by Intertech in June 2019, organized again by CROSQ. As you can see, photos of us carrying out that particular aspects of the gap audit. Myself there and our former persons that work at the laboratory and the persons at Intertech, Ms. Kathleen Gregory Jackson, we have gotten through this gap audit, through rigorous assessments, but thank God we have come through. Lab successfully, after that, passed 2 proficiency tests with ANSI Mexico, right? And this was again organized by CROSQ and PTB. We have done this for refrigerators and in an extension for the refrigerators and also air conditioners, 1 in 2019 and 1 in 2020. And we have been successful again. Laboratory staff received training in troubleshooting by our manufacturer of the laboratory, which is Climatic Testing System. You see the acronym there, CTS, organized by CROSQ and PTB in September 2020. Because we want to show that we are competent enough and understand our system to the fullest, we have gone through all of this thing to offer excellent service for the region. Lab successfully passed these tests. Sorry about that. Laboratory conducted testing, maintenance, troubleshooting, calibration, and also uncertainty budget exercise through the period January to May 2021. These are areas that you have to look into if you want to be a successful laboratory, because you have to be able to speak uncertainty, live uncertainty, and also realize it at the end to say that you are offering an excellent service and your results are being accurate. Laboratories seeking accreditation underwent its first JANAC assessment audit in June 2021. And as we say, from the look of things, it's looking positive that will be accredited accordingly. We embarked on a regional standard introducing, because we have started at first at a local level, then we have changed over to offer it regionally. A new program was introduced, and then we continue with the concept that since we have done it locally, we can do it regionally in the same sense. So the BSJ itself participated in development of regional standards. These regional standards are CRS 57 for energy labeling for refrigerated appliances, CRS 58 energy labeling for compact fluorescent lamps, which was controlled by Trinidad and Tobago's laboratory, and lighting emitting diodes similarly for Trinidad and Tobago's energy laboratory. CRS-59 energy labeling for air conditioners was also introduced. Awareness session of regional standards and energy efficiency program were conducted April 2019. Introduction of new regional standards and labels. We have done that. Importers informed of the regional program. We have done reinforced the importer registration program. When we have done all of that, we have embarked on energy consumption test of refrigerator samples. Testing of refrigerator samples will be done according to test standard HRF 1 2016, that's energy and internal volume of refrigerating appliances, which is recommended test method in the CRS 57 labeling standard. Similarly, testing of air conditioner samples will be done according to the test standard ISO 5151 for non-conducted air conditioners and heat pumps. Testing and rating performance, which is the recommended test standard in the CRS 59 labeling standard. We have done all of these types of tests, and we are offering service locally regarding this, and we are launching and reaching out to the region to come on board with these test samples. This is the meta, just a look at snapshot for consumption of refrigerators. These equations are critical, and we use these equations in our analysis for the energy consumption to capture and to capture data, calculate them and analyze, and then we will determine where you stand in terms of your energy efficiency when we plug them into our labeling to determine whether or not your product is energy efficient or not. And that will be explained even further by Dr. Richard when he's on board. These consumptions have to be done where you looked at volumetric measurement of refrigerators. Because of the volumetric measurements, according to the standard, then you will realize that you must not exceed a particular energy limits. And we use these types of measurement in a way to measure how efficient our refrigerators are conducting or consuming the energy. And mind you, these volumetric measurements have to be so accurate, because if they are off, and you have to get someone that is qualified enough to do them. And we have on board with us additional staff on board right now, which is Richard Wendell. He's doing excellent job in that area as we speak. So you can be assured that whatsoever tests we're carrying out for the region, you will be getting the best. That's myself there showing you some volumetric measurement. That's Miss Kathleen Gregory Jackson for volumetric measurement. And these are thermocouple placements. That's the way we carry it out. And you will have the cooling capacity test method. And these are done according to the ISO 5151 test standard. The manufacturer will require to provide test lab with information, and I have to repeat this, to provide the laboratory with this information as to how to vary the speed of the compressor to achieve full load frequency. And this is, we put the clause here for the ISO 5151 5.1.1.2 as you see on screen. We need to know how to do this, and we have to get this information from manufacturer. And when they send us this information, then we can put it to the test and determine whether or not their thing are meeting what it's supposed to meet. If they have not provided us with such information, then we have to do a worst case scenario by just testing it at full load, in a sense, at the highest speed that we can achieve. Whether it make it or not, then that would be on them. But at the moment, we are just carrying out. Previously, we used to offer two levels, one at half load and one at full load. But now we're just giving them one try at full load. If they doesn't make it at full load, then it's too bad that it is not efficient enough to go on the market. That's for inverters. And this is the equation that we use to demonstrate the level of the capacity for air conditioner units. And we're not making up anything, and it's right there in the annex of the normative. We point you to it. So if you submit samples and we put it to the test and you haven't made it, then the onus is on you. I think we need to speak of turnaround time, which is very critical. The turnaround time for refrigerator test samples will be very based on the type of defrost system. And the type to defrost, and we use this type of data, this type of information to conduct the test assessment, and we have to wait on the defrost cycle to determine whether or not a refrigerator is an automatic defrost or a long-time automatic defrost system. You have some of the refrigerators, as you see, we give you a turnaround time of 2 weeks for the simple types, and we give you a turnaround time of 4 weeks for the more complex types. Why we do this is based on the complex type would be refrigerators with even double compressors, where we have to test it on one compressor cycle, and then we test it on both compressors combined together, and it will take longer. We do these things at warmest or coldest settings, and based on the result, we will switch to coldest or warmest after we set it at mid-range. So it takes a while for a refrigerator to test, and it's a turnaround time that we cannot give any less time to our persons that submitting these items for testing. For air conditioners, we tried our best to give you a 1 week turnaround time, because we're not focusing on the term SEER, we are focusing mainly on EER for air conditioners. We try to just go straight ahead, because the Caribbean, we don't have any such fluctuations in a seasonal change in terms of the temperatures. So we stick mainly to EER for the region. Other than that, the air conditioners would take longer. So we just focus on just carrying it through an EER and give you your ratings as we go along. And that commences our presentation, and we wish and invite you all to come on board and join us as we try to do our best for the region at large. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davids, for highlighting the importance of having our regionally available testing scheme for refrigerators and air conditioners. So I invite you to, give us some concluding remarks, anything that you'd like the participants to note or take away from today's presentation.
Right, so what I can say, the train is moving, and we don't want anyone to get left behind. So what I invite everyone to do is to come on board, because we have tested this thing and realized that it can work. And we are here to share whatever information and to guide any process that anyone else want information regarding how to set up a lab for it to work, and all of the challenges that we have faced. We can share that with our fellow laboratories for the region's sake. And we just want our importers to know, and all our retailers and consumers, every stakeholders to know, that we are here to work with you as a team and to demonstrate to you that excellence can be achieved if you put the hard work in and the output will be excellence. Thank you.
Thank you for that commitment from the Bureau of Standards, Jamaica. So I would now like to turn the session over to Dr. Wendell Richards. He's the head of the Standards Compliance Department Regulatory Division at NCRA Jamaica, and he will give us an overview of energy efficiency registration, testing, and labeling implications and considerations, and give us Jamaica's experience in this area. So just to do the brief overview of Dr. Richards, he's a native of Trinidad and Tobago, and he has been employed at the BSJ for almost 17 years. He heads the Standards Compliance Department, which comprises appliance unit, construction unit, non-metallic unit, prepackaged goods unit. And this department is responsible for monitoring compulsory standards and technical regulations for products at both the ports of entry and in the marketplace in Jamaica. He has a Doctor of Business Administration as well as an MBA, and his BSc is in chemistry, and he also has extensive training in food science and technology. And just to highlight some of his hobbies, health and fitness, as well as culinary arts. Dr. Richards, I hand over the session to you. So the floor is yours.
Okay, good morning and good afternoon to all participants wherever you are. And what I'll be taking you through this at this time is what Jamaica's experience so far, what we've done so far, and where we are. So what I'm going to do is just give you some tips as to what you could employ in your respective jurisdictions. Okay, so the outline is program overview, product declaration, registration, and monitoring. But you've got the testing regimen already, okay? And we'll present you the label, which we will be issuing. Okay, so the program objectives: the lower CARICOM's carbon footprint and importation costs for fossil fuels, reduce vulnerability to climate change and environmental pollution, register distributors and importers of energy-efficient appliances, monitor compliance of energy-efficient appliances, influence consumer purchasing decisions, which is very important. Okay, so pretty much it's all said already. Okay, so the overarching legislation in each jurisdiction would be applicable, okay, to the energy efficiency program. For example, the Standards Act in Jamaica, 1956, and its attendant regulations, okay? The Trinidad and Tobago Standards Act of 1997, right? So wherever you are, your legislation this program, and you regulate, and you, whether it's taking samples, monitoring, taking enforcement actions. Okay, so what are the compulsory standard specifications involved? These are the CARICOM Regional Standard for the testing of refrigerators, JS-CRS 57. Well, JS in Jamaica, but it's the CARICOM Regional Standard 57 and the CARICOM Regional Standard 59, which is the testing of air conditioners. So what you should look at, all importers, all distributors, even the manufacturers, you need to conduct due diligence, okay? So what are the market requirements for the jurisdiction that you are in? What do they require, okay? So what you do, you call your national standard bodies and find out what are the standards, what are the regulations, what are the administrative procedures that you need to follow so that you can become compliant, okay? So the manufacturers may have to actually study the standards. It's a good thing to access the standard. You can get it in an electronic form and send them to the manufacturers. So the manufacturers can actually study the standards and understand what are the requirements of their respective standards, right? So this is what we've been doing. We've actually been doing that. And we've had manufacturers calling us and saying, okay, we did this test, but we didn't get this result. So where did we go wrong? And they've been bombarding us with questions, all right? So this is what needs to be done. And in your respective jurisdiction, it might be different based on your climate, your economic climate, and your compliance with the importers and distributors. It may be different. Okay. So you could also provide the manufacturer supplier, right, with an electronic copy of the standard. So what we put in place is an importer registration program, right? So, and these are some of the typical things you would require, right? What is who is the primary contact? What is the name of the establishment, right? What's the primary address? Receiver, where these appliances coming, right? So these refrigerators, these wine chillers, and these freezers, where are they going to? When they leave the port, where are they going? So we need to get that information, right? The clearance method. In Jamaica, we could clear on the port, or some persons have special privileges from customs. So we have the authorized economic operator, or you have site privileges, where it would just go straight to your warehouse, okay? Type, right, so type of import as well, we'll refer to that. The country of origin, where's the product coming from? Is it coming from Mexico? Is it coming from China? Is it coming from the US? So these are critical pieces of information that we collect. Your total consignment per annum, right? So these are the things that we ask. Are you a seasonal importer? So are you a one-time importer? Or do you import every month? So these are the things that we usually ask of them, right? What is the product common names? Is it an air conditioner, wine chill example? Who's the supplier, right? Who's the manufacturer? The brand name, model numbers, serial numbers. So these are some of the pieces of information that you should try to access from the importer or the distributor. If you're dealing directly with the manufacturer, I'll come to that later on, discuss that later on. All right, so these are some of the information that we required. The nominal power for the air conditioners, we require the nominal power, the category, whether it's a split or is it compact, model, is it inside, outside, SEER, which is the seasonal energy rating. All right, for the refrigerator, or then the inverter air conditioners must be submitted with instructions how to adjust the speed of the unit. And also the EER, okay? And I just want to repeat this point. What you should require from them, and I'm referring to this national standard bodies, what you need as well, okay? Get this information. So we need this information, and this is for CARICOM. So you're sending the appliances to Jamaica. The lab needs this information. Mr. Davids needs this information. The inverter air conditioners must be submitted with instructions how to adjust the speed of the unit, okay? So for the refrigerators, the total volume in terms of liters, the cold compartment, freezer volume in terms of liters, and the energy consumption, right? Which is kilowatt per hour per year. Now, what we have here is an example. Again, you don't have to follow this, but based on what's happening in your jurisdiction, this is an option. So what we've done, we've given both the manufacturer and the importer options. So the manufacturer wants to get market access in Jamaica, for example. So we say to them, you can submit your products directly to the DSJ through NCRA, who's the regulator, for testing, right? So we need to know who's trying to get market access. So instead of coming directly to the lab, what we've said, you can come through NCRA, right? And we'll manage the process where the samples get to the lab. So we need to know who you are and what products you're trying to get market access for. But we've also given the importers an option. If you don't want to deal with the manufacturer directly, and you want to deal with the process yourself, you also have an option. So this option is for the importers, right? So what we do, we issue to them the cost of the program. All right, and they can submit the sample to the DSJ for testing. Okay, when the results are generated, we will supply them with the results. But before, yeah, so the lab generates test results, it's sent to the regulator, we analyze the test results, and then we would communicate to them. Now, if it is compliant, we have what is called a pre-shipment authorization certificate. Now we issue to them to say, okay, the samples are compliant, you can send a commercial shipment to Jamaica. So that's what we've been doing, okay? And we'll also distribute the labels, right? So if it's compliant as well, we distribute the relevant number of labels will be issued. So this is one option, because we do have informal importers, and we want everybody to come into the program. So this is really for like more of the informal importers. They're not going through the manufacturer, but they may go shopping somewhere in Costa Rica. They may go shopping somewhere in Panama, right? Or in the US or wherever. And they may buy some products, a small quantity, okay? But those appliances need to be compliant as well. So we provided the avenue for them to get those appliances to be compliant. Okay, so we do pre-shipment inspections as well. I may have mentioned that before. So if we can get accredited test results, and accredited test results meaning a third party who was authorized, who's saying that, okay, this laboratory is compliant to conduct these tests. We analyze those tests, right? Any quality certificates, inspection certificates, we use those to make a decision whether the products can come into the country. Okay, so again, you don't have to do this exactly the way how I have expressed it, but these are just examples that we have used, and it has been working. It has been working, right? So we are getting more persons coming to us. It has been slow, but it's very effective, and it's actually taking traction. It's picking up pace now, okay? So what we'll do is issue them a pre-shipment authorization, which is just an authorization to say, okay, this product is compliant with X standard, and it can come into the country, right? What it does is it removes bureaucracy, right? Your product gets to the warehouse as quickly as possible, right? It gets to the market faster when we do the pre-shipment inspections. So it removes bureaucracy, right? It removes it being hassled at the port by customs, okay? Or even inspectors wanting to take another look or whatever it is, right? It removes that bureaucracy. So ease of doing business, right? Reduce risk of costs and delays, right? Increase competitiveness because your product gets to the market as quickly as possible, right? Overview of any shortcomings. If there are any issues, it can resolve before the product comes here, right? So no surprises or any uncertainty. Decisions can be taken based on, right? So decisions can be, right? So decisions can be taken based on content of the reports and demonstrating to the supplier and clients that you place great value on quality, okay? Okay, so now this is option B, and this is for the manufacturers. Okay, and this process actually is the most popular of the decisions so far, and this is the one that most persons have gravitated to so far. So what we've done, we've said to the manufacturers, okay, you want to get market access in Jamaica, so you pay for the testing. So then what they would do, they would supply us with who their distributors are. So the distributor doesn't have to pay for the testing. And we don't have any issues or arguments about, okay, this product is already in the market, why do I have to come and pay for testing? And we don't have to have those type of arguments and that type of thing. So what we've decided, when the manufacturer pays for the testing and the product is compliant, then what we require of the manufacturer is who are your distributors. So those are the ones now that we would actually register. Tell us what are the number of refrigerators, appliances, or whatever, air conditioners, and we issue them with a pro forma invoice, okay, with the costings, right? Once the test results come back and they are compliant, they get a pre-shipment authorization certificate, and then when the products actually get in Jamaica, we retain the shipment and we take a sample to verify that the products are actually compliant. Okay, so we take the samples and labels will be issued. So we advise it. This is another thing. Advise your shippers, right? So these are the manufacturers. Advise them to pack the appliances in a manner which will reduce damage, right? We actually got some appliances that were damaged sometime last year. Okay, so be very careful of that and advise them to make sure and pack the appliances in a manner handled with care, etc. Right? So the package sample shall be shipped in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions, handling and storage. Submit instructions on the operating. Right? So what we plan to do is market surveillance as well. So it's not just testing, it's verification throughout the year. Okay, so the registration, what we've done, we've given them registration for up to 2 years. So once you submit the appliance, it has been tested, you've given your labels, we would test, like the formal registration would take right throughout that 2-year cycle. We would do like every 3 months or every 6 months or whatever, we would do some surveillance just to make sure. Okay, random inspections, right, at the appliances, department stores, where have you. Okay, so it's random inspections, authorization, registration of compliance of models on sale. So the stickers, however, must be fixated to the appliance in the showroom. Okay, so once it's in the showroom, that sticker must be affixed to the relevant appliance. When the consumers, however, are purchasing, well, it must be issued to the consumer, right? So enforcement actions will involve withdrawal from sale, detention, seizures, what have you, based on the case. So we hope you don't have to do anything like that, right? So enforcement, we usually take enforcement in, we start from the bottom up. We don't necessarily start with a warning. We try to encourage people in compliance, right? So this is why we have these type of sensitizations, is really to encourage persons, right? So we start from the bottom up, you get a warning, and we take it up the chain, depending on how bad things get. So there's a regional database. Some of you may be aware of this. There's a regional appliance database where the results would go. Okay, so consumers would be able to access this database. The regulators will be able to access this database. Well, the suppliers, the manufacturers, whatever have you, would be able to access, and different persons have different levels of access to this database and the information that would be that they can access. Okay, so we actually had some training with this database a couple of weeks ago. You can appeal as well if anything goes wrong. You have that right to appeal. And again, your jurisdiction and your laws and your you would design your program to suit whatever laws and regulations that you have in place. Okay, so we in Jamaica we give them this we give them an opportunity to appeal any decision that might be unfavorable. So these are just some of the things that you can model your compliance program off of. Right, we also ask persons to collect the samples within 30 days. Okay, and again, this is applicable to you, okay, and your situation. Okay, so basically that's it. No, I'll take you to the label. So we'll look at the label and the costing. So part of the registration program. Just give me a second here. So we actually have a costing for the program. So typically, so before I get to that slide, because having some technical challenges here. So typically, we charge like $2 US per label. And here we are. Right. So pretty much this is what our label looks like. There would be an amendment. We would not be having any dollar value on this label, right? So this label is being amended at the moment. So we'll be taking the operating cost out of it. And we'll just have the estimated yearly energy usage on the label, right? So that's the only amendment to this label. So we're having that done right now. Because we are actually at the stage where we are ready to issue labels. We've had one company, they've had like 5 refrigerators tested so far. 4 more were completed sometime last week or the week before, and they have more here at the moment. So we're already at that stage to actually issue some labels to them. Okay, so that would have been the first of the program. So we plan to have a little informal ceremony or whatever it is to hand over those labels as the first of the program. Okay. In terms of the costing, as I said before, we have a biennial registration fee, which is the equivalent of $650 US, right? That's 100,000 Jamaican dollars. So it's approximately 650 US, and that's for biennial. So we charge them that for every 2 years. So this is what the distributor or the importer would pay, not the manufacturer. The manufacturer doesn't pay this. The distributor or the importer would pay this fee. Okay, and this is to cover the administrative stuff. As I said before, the label is approximately $2 US each label, and these are the costings, right, in US dollars for the different types of refrigerators, right? So approximately the fees at maximum $700 US, which is minimum based for the type of energy and efficiency that Mr. Davis and his team has put out. Right, you're looking at one of the best labs in the world. Yep. Practically is one of the best labs in the world. Okay. And the fee is pretty minimum. Right, here we have some more fees, and it's pretty maximum $700 US. Right, and the ACUS is around approximately $482 US, right, per air conditioner. It's pretty minimal. All right, so basically that was our presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Richards. So any key takeaways you'd like to leave the participants with for this particular presentation before we go to the Q&A?
Yeah. All right, what I would do is to encourage the NSBs to dialogue with the importers, the distributors, and your retailers. Okay, you have to sort of encourage them and let them know what you're doing, right? Some persons still may not know about the program. So surprisingly, last year we invited a huge number of persons, and still every day we find out that there are some persons who were not at these various sensitizations. So you have to keep dialoguing with them and encouraging them and getting them to come into the program. There has to be buy-in. So compliance is going to increase when there is buy-in. Okay, and encourage the brokers, encourage even the custom brokers, encourage them as well, involve them in the sensitizations, because a lot of them do the administrative work on behalf of the importers. So a lot of them, they are the ones who normally dialogue with us. What are the requirements for whatever product, not necessarily appliances, or whatever product? They are the ones who call us every day and say, what does the importer need to do to get this product compliant? So you have to keep that dialogue open. As well as the manufacturers as well, they may have a lot of questions. You have to be patient with them. A lot of them are not English speakers, but you have to be patient with them because they ask a lot of questions. And then there's a challenge with context. All right, so they may speak English perfectly well, but there's understanding context. You have to be really, really patient and saying the same things over and over and over again. So we've been going through that. It's been really a learning process. Exciting on one hand, but it's a learning process on the other hand, right? Because we learn from them as well. We learn from the manufacturers as well, a lot of things from them as well, okay? So that would be my advice. Just have patience and keep spreading the program and explaining what the program is about. And typically you want to reduce the carbon footprint and the energy usage in CARICOM, okay? And pretty much you'll have buy-in. Okay, yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Richards. I totally agree that the dialogue needs to be continuous, especially liaison with the brokers, the manufacturers, distributors, because they may not be fully aware of the program requirements. So I would now like to officially commence the Q&A section. So we have some questions in the chat already, but I also encourage persons to raise their hands and they will be unmuted to raise their queries. So Dr. Richards, I would probably like to start with you. Will the price provided to the regional bureaus be more reasonable, taking into consideration the high freight costs for shipping? So how has BSJ addressed this particular issue?
Okay, we attempted, in fact, we had dialogue with customs to try to remove the duties, but they said that anything coming into the country, even the samples, they would have to pay duties. Okay, so Well, it is what it is. And as I said, these costs, they are not actually exorbitant. And what we're saying, and this is why we use that strategy of getting the manufacturer to pay for the testing where possible. Because remember, the manufacturer is the one who wants to get market access in their respective jurisdiction. So they are the ones who should be paying for the testing, not necessarily importer. If the importer wants to go it alone, well, then he has to pay the respective fee. Okay, so if you're importing from St. Lucia, or you're importing from Trinidad, and you're an importer or a distributor, and you want to go it alone without the manufacturer, then you have to pay the fees. But to reduce the cost, that's why we gave two options: one for the manufacturer, one for the importer. And so far, we've only had one importer who's decided to pay for all of the appliances, and they've had the most appliances so far. But based on their business structure, they've decided to pay for it themselves, right? But most other persons have taken the option whereby the manufacturer is the one that pays for the testing, and so there's a reduced cost there. So the only thing the importer, distributor, retailer would have to pay for is the whatever registration fee you may want to put in place and the cost of the labels.
Thank you, Dr. Richards.
And BSG has just revised their testing fees, so there won't be any alterations anytime soon. These are the latest fees.
So just to put things in context, what about the sample size required for the refrigerators and the air conditioners? Dr. Richards?
Editor, you broke up a while, so we didn't get the question.
Yes, I was wondering if you could comment on the sample size for the testing of the refrigerators and the air conditioners.
Okay, we're having some bandwidth issues, so we're not hearing the question.
Okay, so hello, can you hear me now, Dr. Richards?
Yeah, I'm hearing you now. Yeah.
Okay, so I was wondering if you
could
could
you repeat
comment.
the question?
Could you comment on the sample size for the refrigerators and the air conditioners?
Sample. Or are you asking about the sample size?
Yes, how many units would be required for testing? And how is that being handled by BSG?
I'm getting the question. Nadita, try to put it in the chat. I'm not sure if the question is in the chat because we're not getting the question.
Dr. Richards, check the chat.
Hello, Dr. Richards, can you hear me now? Okay, so I'm just going to move on in terms of the questions. So Latoya, can you confirm that you can hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm putting the questions to Dr. Richards in the chat.
Yes, okay. So I just wanted to invite Mr. Norbert to comment on the question that was raised in terms of the software related to the energy efficiency in the buildings, he would have put his response. But Churchill, can you comment on why this is important and give us some context as well?
Okay, thank you very much, Nadita. So during the development of the code, and as well when we conducted the training, we spoke about software because there are compliance options that would actually utilize software to demonstrate that the documents are in compliance with the code. One of the points to note is that the software must be approved by the code official as well. So there needs to be dialogue in country in terms of which software will be utilized to demonstrate compliance with the code. I've shared in the chat, there are two open source software. The first one can be used for residential buildings, and the second one can be used for commercial buildings. So if I was just to give an example of the way in which the software will be used, first of all, you would download the software, or you could use the web-based version of it. There are two versions. One is a web-based version, or the other is the desktop version. So for commercial application, for example, once the code official, so in our case in Antigua and Barbuda, this is something that has to be approved by the Development Control Authority because they are the code officials. The software must be approved by them and all stakeholders must agree on that. And then going forward, the section of the code for a commercial building, for example, let me share my screen just to give a clear picture of what it is. So we see here that table C407.5.11, this will provide you with the specifications for the standard reference and the proposed designs. So the information under the standard reference would be what you would input this information into the software. And you will be comparing this with your proposed design, your proposed design. And so the total UA, the U factors, based on different areas of the building, the roofs, the walls, the above grade walls, the below grade walls, the floors above grade, the floors, the slab on grade, opaque doors, all this information you would now input into the code as your reference standard, your reference building. Your proposed design would now be based on what you were proposing for your building, and then you would actually perform this simulation with the software. So this is a recommendation, but it's not cast in stone. Discussions about software must be among the national stakeholders, the key stakeholders being the code enforcers, the code officials, to determine which would be the software that you'll be utilizing for your respective jurisdiction. But I just gave you examples of two open source software. These are used in the US as well to demonstrate compliance for both commercial and residential buildings.
Thank you, Churchill. I think it is very useful to have the software as part of the tools for the design of the buildings, and the references are well noted. So that question came in from Miss Crystal Blackwell. So if that is okay, we can probably go on to another query, and I would like to bring in Doodnath Singh as well. So the question is, with the CROSQ standards, will they accept Energy Star labels? So Doodnath, would you like to comment on how the testing of the CFLs and LEDs should be done, and maybe highlight some of the differences with the Energy Star as well?
So basically, with regards to the testing that we have commenced thus far, we have only followed the two IC standards in relation to the test method for electrical and photometric testing, as it relates to the relationship between our testing results to the Energy Star. We have not made any relationship with regards in that aspect. So I think based on this question, it's a good question, and this is something we'll need to go back to the drawing board with and do some intercomparisons with regards to the Energy Star labeling, as well as our testing results, and make some comparisons to see in terms of the results where the testing lies and where the results lie as based on the IC standards.
Thank you, Doodnath. So I'd just like to mention, because we would have been part of the team that worked on the regional standards, the primary reference documents would have been the IEC, and the Energy Star may have different reference standards in terms of the testing requirements. So we'd need to take those issues into account as well. So I think, the query from Ms. Deborah Deal, so she has further refined the question in terms of appliances, AC units, etc., Energy Star, the EP. And I think the response to that, it all hinges on what is the testing methodology. And I would like to bring in Dr. Richards or Mr. Davids, if they're able to respond to the question, in terms of how the program at BSJ works, and if there's any consideration of Energy Star or other labels that cover energy efficiency from other jurisdictions. So I'm not sure, Dr. Richards, if you are able to hear us.
Yeah, we could hear you now.
Okay.
Now, when the appliances are shipped, they are normally shipped with energy labels from the jurisdiction they are coming from. Those will be used. They will have to use the local label. What we have a software, so when the results come, we enter the results into the software, and the software generates the label. And that's the label to be used or affixed to the appliance. That's the label that will be issued to the consumer. So no other label would be considered, or no other label should be affixed to the appliance, but the CARICOM label.
Thank you, Dr. Richards. And just in terms of the earlier question that came in, the sample size you'd have indicated is 1 per appliance, per each appliance. So that reduces the program and makes it less onerous than it could be. So, Dr. Richards, did you want to add any comments around that question, or Mr. Davids as well?
Yeah, Mr. Davis could take that one.
Okay.
Okay. For that question, later, why we use just 1 sample? We could have used 3, but for turnaround time and for efficiency, we try to do things in that regard. When you are testing, like a manufacturer, other laboratories across the world, like when we went to like ANSI, they would do 3. They are testing directly for the manufacturer. For our importers taking in refrigerators, these units are huge. And we just take 1 because you realize the turnaround time for just 1 unit and the laboratory capacity to test and to accommodate everyone, we minimize it to just 1 sample and give you a worst case scenario with that 1 sample. And once you make it, if you have any challenges or accept the result for the 1 sample, we will not stop a person if they want to submit additional sample, but we're confident in our result and the way that we do this thing. So that's why we just use 1 for now for speed, because we are doing it for not just Jamaica, but for the region, right? And the world at large, because our laboratory can test. Why we can test also, addition to this question, just giving a local breakdown, why we are capable of testing for the region, we can do both 50 and 60 hertz, right? And we can test at whatever power supply. Our region is complex. You have different power supplies that we use across the region. So when we're going to take into consideration sample size from all the areas for a laboratory, and you'll realize the capacity for refrigerator is 16, right? And for AC is 1. So it's very reasonable for us just accepting 1 sample in terms of 1 unit in terms of the sample size for each.
Thank you, Mr. David. So there's another comment from Ms. Deborah Deal. I invite her to, raise her hand so we can unmute her to ask her questions. Latoya, can you facilitate the query from Ms. Deal?
Yeah, I'm just doing that now.
Ms. Deal, can you try now?
Can you hear me? Yes? No?
Yes, we can hear you. You
Okay,
can go.
great. Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is I've really enjoyed this entire project and the entire demonstration today. But what I'm trying to find out is, so if, let's say, I send a Westinghouse dryer, model number 34567, Energy Star, to you for testing, and you test it and you come up with whatever it is that you need to come up with so that we could have a label. Every time one of those comes to our border, can we actually assume that if it's made in the same manufacturing location and it has the same model numbers and that type of thing, can we do that? Or do we have to actually test every single piece of equipment that comes into the country?
I will pass that over
Okay.
to Dr. Richards and Mr. Davids.
Yeah, that won't be necessary. Okay. As we said before, we'll be doing monitoring. So there's a registration aspect. We do the testing. There's a registration. Okay. And this is why one of the pieces of information that we request is, what is your annual importation? Right? How many times, or what's your annual import quantities? So we have an idea of how many times you'll be importing into the country. Okay, so you won't have to submit it every time. The registration program is for 2 years. The program is valid for 2 years, and we will be doing our monitoring at the ports and in the marketplace. So we will have all your information, model numbers, serial numbers, all of these things is what we capture. So our inspectors will be trained. We're going to have a training program just to update the inspectors as to what is going on, and then we'll be very vigilant in the marketplace. So nobody coming with a fake model number should slip through if we have our relevant programs in place.
So since we bring 99% of everything that we have in this country into our country, it would have to, and of course, whoever brings the goods in is responsible for those goods. So I'm assuming then that the persons who are bringing them in to sell, like I'll say Furniture Plus or Jeffrey Jones or whatever, they would be responsible for having all of these items tested and having the new label put on, even though we could keep on the Energy Star, because of course, some of us, how we don't like to change much, so we have to have the old guy too, as well as the new guy. But at that point in time, that's when the sticker would be put on before the item is actually sold in the showroom, correct?
Yes, in the showroom, the sticker would be there. But in dialogue and discussions with some of the manufacturers, what they're saying is that the consumer doesn't want the package to be broken. Okay, so they won't be sticking.
Customs won't accept it here if it's broken.
Right. So and also the consumer. So the consumer likes the brand new package sealed properly, right? So they don't want it broken just to put a sticker on. So they'll be issuing that sticker to the consumer. So whether they put it on or not, well, that's fine. The appliance is compliant. As far as we are concerned, it's compliant, and we issue them with that label. But once it's in the showroom, once it's on display, that energy efficient label has to be on that appliance. Whether it's an air conditioner, wine chiller, or refrigerator.
So then one more quick question is, so then if that is to be done and an individual wanted to bring in their own refrigerator, wine fridge, that type of thing, they would be responsible for the testing of that, or they would be responsible, or they would be responsible to contacting you to see whether that piece of that appliance has ever been tested before and whether it would meet your standards, yes?
All right. If it's for personal use,
Yes.
it's not necessary. Can you bring it in at your own risk? However, once it's for commercial purposes, you have to go to the formal program. But for personal use, it's not necessary. If you want to, fine, you'll have to pay for it, right? But it's not necessary, right? But for commercial purposes, commercial quantities going to be resold, yes, you have to go through the program.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up.
Thank you for those questions, Deborah. Very insightful questions, because it really informs the regulatory systems that we use, and it might vary differently in different CARICOM member states. So thank you, Dr. Richards, for the clarifications, as well as to the system in Jamaica. And there are a couple of questions that Churchill is handling in the chat regarding the software. And I invite the participants to raise their hands. We'll take questions in the next 5 minutes, so we are just a couple of minutes off from the closing time. So any last questions that we would like to raise? So I'm not seeing any hands in the participant list, but I would invite the expert panel to give their closing remarks. So we'll start with Mr. Norbert.
All right, thank you again, Nadita. I just want to thank CROSQ for continuing this dialogue. One of the important things is that we have to, as individual member states, continue this dialogue, even if CROSQ has nothing organized for us. But it's now time for us to take full ownership of all of the work that we have done in terms of the energy efficiency building code, and you just saw quite a lot for the labeling standards. So now member states have to pretty much, I just encourage individual member states to put together all of the work that you've done and to begin the implementation of the standards that have been established throughout the region, so that we can see the true benefits of it, because time is really running out. Thank you.
Thank you, Churchill. I would now move on to Mr. Doodnath Singh to give his closing remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank all the participants for attending today's session. I would also like to inform all the participants with regards to testing of the CFS and LEDs. The testing lab is now up and running in full. I would leave my contact information in the chat, and you all could contact me to get more information in terms of the testing and the process for shipping the items to Trinidad and Tobago for testing. I also would like to thank CROSQ as well as PTB for all the hard work they have invested within TTBS in the development of this Center of Excellence for the testing of LEDs and CFLs. So with this, I would like to thank you all and have a great afternoon and keep safe.
Thank you, Doodnath. So I'll now turn it over to Mr. David from BSJ to close on his section.
Thank you again, Nadita, and today and the time. It is very important you to take heed as to what we have presented to show you what we are trying to have. So as we try to harmonize the region in terms of energy efficiency testing and what we are offering, we encourage everyone to just take this as an early opportunity and a learning opportunity to jump on board with refrigerator testing and air conditioner, and in an extension, wine chillers. And we will try our best. We are here, we have a open door policy here at the Bureau of Standards Jamaica regarding information sharing, regarding development, and whatsoever you want in terms of expert advice. We are here to guide you as we go along. So through the help of CROSQ and with all our support, we want you to come on stream and join us. And in the spirit of Esprit de Corps, we say thank you for cooperating with us as we look forward for harmonizing and going forward, and encourage you to come on board as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. David. I'll now turn it over to Dr. Richards.
Yes, I want to endorse all those who came before me in terms of thanking CROSQ and PTB. It has been a long road, but this is where hard work usually pays off, right? I'm especially proud of Mr. Davids. He was actually part of my department before going over to the lab, and he's largely responsible for helping to set up that lab, okay? So I'm usually boasting about him, right? Because he did an excellent job, okay? And we were really excited about this, and I fully endorse the reduction of the carbon footprint in the region and reducing energy consumption. So we continue to partner with all stakeholders in terms of making this program a success.
Thank you, Dr. Richards. On behalf of TTBS, I'd also like to thank CROSQ, PTB, and as well as recognize the excellent contributions from BSG and our TTBS presenter, Doodnath Singh, as well. I would now turn the session over to Ms. Latoya Burnham, the CROSQ Technical Officer for Quality Promotions, to close today's webinar. So thank you again, everyone. And Latoya, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Nadita. This is our final webinar in the Quality and Energy series, thanks to the TAPSET project, as well as their partners, the European Union, German Corporation, and the GIZ. We wanted to do this webinar because we thought it important to come back to our stakeholders to have this last discussion about the initiatives that we would have been talking about during the entire series, because we've had a number of different discussions and panel discussions and consultations in relation to these two initiatives, the CARICOM Regional Energy Efficiency Building Code, as well as the Energy Efficiency Labeling Scheme. We recognize that we would have done considerable work, thanks again to partners such as the TAPSET, such as the PTB, such as the ESD project before, in terms of putting the frameworks in place at the regional level to help our member states implement. We're now moving from a process of that regional development into the national implementation, because implementation can only happen at the national level. So I want to thank all of you who would have taken the time. It would have been 2 hours, and I know in some member states we would have gone through your lunchtime. So we thank you for the dedication in staying with us. We also thank you for the interest and the questions. I would have dropped a link into the chat where you can find the full recording and the presentations, as well as all the others that would have been done through the entire series will actually be available on our energy site, energy.crosq.org. So you can go there, look for our downloads link in our media tab, and you'll be able to download lots of resources that are available on the on our website. I really want to thank our presenters. We would have been challenge in terms of actually getting everybody together at a time that was convenient, and also trying to get everything in place for this morning's session. Those of you who would have been looking to register before would know we would have had to change the date. And we thank you for being patient with us, and we thank you again for being here with us. Thanks to Mr. Churchill, who never says no. Thank you to Doodnath, Dr. Richards, as well as Mr. Davids for coming on board, having these discussions with us, and having these discussions with the public as well. We really appreciate what the labs have been doing and what the member states have been doing. I can't forget Belize as well as St. Lucia, and now Barbados, who are also part of the labeling scheme, the pilot of the labeling scheme, because eventually we want this to extend across our region. But we're starting with those 5 member states, and then we're looking at how we can implement best practices from there across the region. So thank you all. It has been a learning experience, this webinar series, and it has been very beneficial, I think, to all of those who would have taken part, all of those who would have served in some way, whether as presenters or even in the audience to ask questions. We always appreciate the questions because it gives us some ideas as to what else we need to do to raise the awareness. And we're all about promoting quality in the energy sector in our region. So with those few remarks, I want again to, I know our representatives from GIZ would have been here with us, and I want to thank you again for trusting us with these initiatives. And with those few remarks, I will say thank you again to everyone, and please do have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. We will
CROSQ
close
has
the
embarked
meeting.
on 2 energy efficiency projects to drive home the importance of standards and quality for the energy sector. These initiatives include the CARICOM Regional Energy Efficiency Building Code and the Regional Harmonized Energy Efficiency Labeling Program, better known as C. CROSQ, the network of national standard bodies in CARICOM, facilitates the regional sustainable energy agenda as it relates to testing, measurement, and inspection procedures to aid in strengthening the energy sector. At CROSQ, our approach to the development and harmonization of standards and quality is integral in transforming the way we use energy in the Caribbean. Our citizens can aspire to a higher standard of living by reducing their energy consumption through use of energy-efficient appliances and constructing safer, cleaner, and more productive workspaces. Through CROSQ's work, consumers will be able to purchase energy-efficient equipment, devices, and appliances with greater confidence, and the assurance of quality and safety provided by following the C labels. With the threat of climate change and more active hurricane seasons, countries can mitigate against natural disasters when the CARICOM Regional Energy Efficiency Building Code governs their choices in building construction. To learn more about quality infrastructure in energy, visit energy.crosq.org.
See labels, read the labels, read the labels carefully. You will see they are the key to energy efficiency. You must read the labels when you're shopping for a fridge. These labels you cannot miss on LED bulbs and CFLs. You'll find them on ACs as well.
The new CARICOM energy efficiency labels will help you make better decisions on electrical items you purchase. They show you how much energy is used by each product so that you can save money and electricity in your homes and businesses. Look out for the labels on refrigerators, AC units, and light bulbs. To learn more about these new labels, visit energy.crosq.org.
See labels, read the labels, read the labels carefully. You will see they are the key to energy efficiency. You must read the labels.
The CARICOM Regional Energy Efficiency Building Code was developed to help property developers increase the energy efficiency and the upgradability of their building projects. Energy savings help offset the potential higher cost of building your home to code. And enhanced upgradability helps commercial owners increase their competitive advantage, saving money over time. Additionally, lower energy demands during and after the building process can also lead to community and national level benefits like reduced reliance on fossil fuel generated electricity across the construction industry and in homes, lower national fuel import bills, which can free up funding for other critical areas of investment, and fewer greenhouse gas emissions. So do the maths, play the long game, and help build towards a better future today. For more information on the CARICOM Regional Energy Efficiency Building Code, visit energy.crosq.org.